And cut. All right, man. This is shit, guys. I mean, this is like bad talk radio.
Well, it's not. So what? We can't do an episode where we're not yelling at each other.
I don't think that's what you're. I don't think that's what people are tuning in for. I mean, if people want to listen to, stories about chicks and I mean they can. There's a ton of stuff out there. But I think what your strength is, guys, is that you guys argue stuff intellectually and it just sounds really hokey right now, and it sounds like there's a lot of ego involved right now. Everybody talking,
All right. Let's just what happened today was like more like what one side will call fake news. The conservative side will call fake news, where the New York Times just came out with a story. That Donald Trump met in Trump Tower with a Russian lawyer who's attached to associated with the Russian government in June of 2016 to try to get dirt on Hillary Clinton. Now you and Lance and I talked about it off camera, and Lance, you said you didn't want to talk about it because you haven't had time to get caught up on that.
True.
But we can talk about fake news, where one side is saying all this damaging, the conservative side is saying a lot of stuff that it doesn't disagree with, polls and all the smoke about.
Just if you can just talk about what your insights are, and if Lance doesn't want to retort because he's not ready, well, that he can paint.
All right. Well, it still seems like there's new stuff coming out about Trump people's involvement with Russians, and because at least some of it's debatable about whether the president himself is a dope or whether he's crazy like a fox, but other members of his team don't seem as, they kind of seem dopey. Like Donald Trump Jr. Has been kind of crappy at deflecting. I don't know if some of the Trump people seem like seem crappy at handling this stuff, except that your side, the conservative side, discounts everything.
Look, Rick, this is crazy. Donald Trump is not working for the Russians. I mean, look, the whole thing is absurd. I mean, this is what's happening, okay? The Democrats control the whole media except for talk radio, and Fox News. But they control all the newspapers, all the TV stations, and they are trying to convince the American people that Donald Trump is a spy for the Russians.
Well, that's overstating.
This is absurd.
If they're trying to convince the people of anything, it's based on lots of indicators that Donald Trump has been compromised by his team's association with Russia.
Okay. It just, you're saying the same thing in a way that makes it sound like what you're talking about.
Russian spy,
he's been compromised. I see.
But
I see. Did James Bond tell you that he's been compromised?
There's all this stuff that keeps coming out. That he's more. You can be a dupe without being a spy.
Dupe. Is he a dupe like? Come
on, say Hillary or somebody.
No. I'm trying to think of the great British spy ring that worked for Cambridge. That they were in Phil Kimby or Kim Philby. Kim Philby. Yeah. Is he like Kim Philby?
No, those guys were full-on spies.
I see, but Trump is just an unwitting spy for Russia.
He's not a spy, but he's
not a spy.
But he seems to enjoy overly friendly relations with.
And that arouses your suspicions,
Well, it
doesn't
arouses
it,
a
Rick?
lot of people's suspicion.
Yeah, a lot of Democrats.
Well, I don't know, is Robert Mueller a
They're
Democrat?
wondering about that.
Is,
I mean, it's like we've argued the facts, but you don't have any facts.
But you,
so we
you have
can't
more
even
and more
argue
stuff.
that.
Well, you're
We-
saying
we
all this.
can't- we
You're
can't
saying
even-
that all this stuff that's coming out, and yeah, that hasn't been.
There's
but
nothing coming out, Rick.
The New York Times just came out with this big
The,
story.
well,
about,
the New York Times would never say anything untoward about a Republican president.
Yeah, but you know what? The New York Times has been ripped by both sides.
The the editor of the New York Times was at a conference a couple of years ago, and he said, not even a couple of years ago, this was after Trump was elected, or around that time of the election, and he said that it's no longer about news anymore. They have to use their newspaper to make sure that the progressives win and that the conservatives are defeated. He actually said that.
So okay,
That's the
I'll give you that.
New York Times. You will?
I mean, I don't know that he said that,
I
but
assure
you're
you he
saying
did.
it. So,
Or words
what
to
about,
that effect.
All right,
Words
okay,
to that effect.
fine. Just
They're
for the sake,
completely. They're completely
all right, for the
biased.
sake of moving on, what about?
They'll
then-
make something up if they have to.
What about, for the sake of argument, that Trump is best friends with the owner of the Enquirer, the National Enquirer, who just bought Us, who I think is trying to buy People, who owns a shitload of tabloids. Those guys like flood the newspaper checkout stands with pro-Trump and, during the election, anti-Hillary, and I think still anti-Hillary shit. You said liberals own the entire news media, but they don't own the tabloid media, and now that this Trump's best friend owns all these papers, these cheesy tabloids and entertainment papers, you get all these positive stories on Trump.
Well, Rick, I don't want anybody to lie about the news. I don't want. It's not necessary.
But
Trump's
people aren't
doing
making this story about Donald Trump meeting
what?
with Donald Trump Jr. meeting with this Russian lawyer. It's well substantiated. I haven't read the whole fucking thing, but I assume since it's in the New York Times.
Well, it must be true.
Well, when it's not true, when things turn out to be, they issue corrections, unlike Trump's people. They say, yeah.
Unlike Trump's people, when did Trump lie?
Trump says all sorts of crazy shit
Like
without
what?
retracting.
Like what?
Like that he had a bigger audience at the inaugural than Obama, that shit.
Oh, and you guys want to argue about that? Is this a big deal for you
Well,
guys?
I'm just saying
I'm
that,
just
like-
curious because, frankly, I have to say I don't give a flying fuck how many people went to his inauguration.
Well, then we have to
either
wait,
of them.
But then we have to.
I don't
argue-
even. You
no,
know
no,
what?
no, no,
I
no,
don't
no.
even know because I don't even care.
Then we have to argue about when Trump tweets something like the professional, him as a wrestler beating up CNN, whether he's kidding or not.
Did
Like,
he even tweet that? Wasn't that some
he
guy?
retweeted that.
Oh, he retweeted it.
Yeah. Some guy made it. He threw a CNN logo.
This is the kind of stuff you worry about, huh?
Well, no, we have to decide whether, like,
Liberal guys sitting at home. This is what liberals are thinking about. Trump tweeted something. I didn't like that.
no, this is where we got after I said that Trump tends to not issue retractions and say, I
What's
got
he going
this.
to retract?
Well, nothing about that. That's a dumb tweet. But like when he tweets other stuff,
Like what?
I know when he tweets stuff that's factually in error.
Like what?
Like that. Well, I mean,
So
I just.
it's 10:21. We're going to wait here until you can come up with something he lied about.
He said he had more people at his inaugural. Now,
No, something of interest. Who cares how many people he had at his inaugural?
but he does.
This is
he-
trivial.
Yeah, but he keeps tweeting about
I
this
don't
shit.
care.
But so you're
Did
saying
he lie about the treaty with Iran? Did he lie about
He said
our
his opinion.
negotiations with China?
One
I
of
mean,
the-
I hate to make this of something of substance,
Yeah, but he keeps
you're-
tweeting of not of substance.
I don't care.
So he's.
It's not important.
What I'm saying is, when newspapers fuck up, they issue corrections. Even the New York Times, when the newspaper of record for 200 years, when they get something wrong, they say, "All right, we fucked this up." And the Washington Post, legitimate journalism, even legitimate cheesy journalism like CNN, which has a lot of bad habits, when they fuck up, they issue corrections and people lose their jobs, as they did a couple weeks ago.
He recently tweeted that the G20 summit was a success. How do you feel about that, Rick?
It was weird. I mean, a lot of what I see of things I see on Twitter, which is not an unimpeachable source of accuracy. But I see a bunch of people joking about, you know, you had 19 of the G20 nations come out in favor of the Paris Accords, and then leaving Trump being the only one not. You had pictures that people thought were amusing of Trump kind of sitting alone while everybody else is all the other leaders are talking among themselves, which is not that's not a legitimate analysis, because you can always, I'm sure, pick and choose photos that make points that aren't necessarily reflected by what actually happened. But like, he had Ivanka sit in on a climate change meeting where everybody else there was the leader of his or her country. But he's allowed to tweet that he thought it was a success, even though there were a lot of things that people found easy to make Twitter jokes about. That's not, I mean, that's an opinion. He said it was a success. You don't have to retract your opinion.